Nation project For Our People premiere and panel discussion. Before I bring them out, another round of applause for that video, man. Good stuff. So our host, keep it going, yes, our host, so grateful to meet this young lady. Please welcome Heather Washington, Self-Governance Director at Salt River Pima Maricopa Indian Community. Give a round of applause. She makes her way out right here. Hey, don't forget now, her community, they're sponsoring our tours, okay? So go sign up for that, okay? Thank you, Salt River Pima Maricopa. Ladies and gentlemen, and the guy behind the lenses, just listen to the community. That's one thing I really enjoy about, you know, Jeremy Charles, is that he listens to the community before he starts to dive into it. So let's give, from Pursuit Films, let's give Jeremy Charles a round of applause. Come on out here, boss man. It's good to see you. Good stuff, brother. And now, ladies and gentlemen, the starting lineup for the Quinault Nation, ladies and gentlemen. Please welcome the president from Quinault Nation, Guy Kopelman. Round of applause, let him hear you. Come on out here, President. Our Kopelman, and ladies and gentlemen, our council member from Quinault Nation, Tyson Johnston. Round of applause, come on out here, boss. Ladies and gentlemen, our community service director, Julie Burnett. Round of applause, round of applause. And last but not least, our project developer, community-driven relocation demonstration project, Alyssa Johnston, Quinault Nation. All right, Jeremy, Heather, I give it to you.
Welcome, everybody. Hope you enjoyed that film, and you've seen these familiar faces on the video. You look even better in person. I just wanted to direct my first question to President. Why do you think it was important to share this story, you know, for filmmaking purpose, for our people? Can you tell us why is this important?
I believe, you know, one of the most important things is 50 years of self-governance, and the Quinault Indian Nation was at the beginning of that. Mm-hmm. You know, we helped formulate all this, get it going. Joe Dela Cruz was on the brief showing here, and you know, his vision, you know, for our tribe and for all tribes really helped set the tone for a lot of what we do. And I believe in with that being said, we have to give back. And, you know, this is our way of giving back to all of those tribes that have been involved in this process. And it helps lay a blueprint for other tribes that may be at ground zero of climate change, like the Quinault Indian Nation is. And I think that if we all look at our past and we look at those creations that we all have, you know, the Chief Tamanch, the creator, he made that first man, and when that man crawled out of dirt, he told that man to live there and create a village. So we've been doing this since the beginning of time, and it's a process that isn't new to us. And I believe that if we share success, if we share some of the things that we're doing, it could help us all grow. So that's why I feel it's important.
Thank you.
Again, I just want to take the opportunity to thank you all for sharing your story. It's a great story of a beginning of a story, really. You know, you guys are in the beginning phases of, you know, moving forward. So with that, what future climate-related efforts are being considered beyond the relocation itself?
Yes, we're working on several projects. One of them being, we have a second village called Queets, and we're working on the master plan to relocate that village as well. We're also working with IHS and EPA to install a new wastewater treatment plant for the village of Queets. And we're currently working with Washington State Department of Transportation and FEMA to do a bypass road. There's one highway going into Tahola called State Route 109, and it's failing. There's a big landslide that we think the road is going to collapse at any time, and so we've built a bypass road, so we're working on that. And I thought we had one other project that we were working on.
Queets Generations.
Oh yes, how could I forget? We're almost completely constructed the Queets Generation building, and we're planning on opening that later this month.
Awesome.
Thank you for that. Tyson or Alicia, are there lessons that other communities can learn from what you've been through in combating climate change in these efforts? Would you like to speak to that?
Sure. Yeah, so don't mind me if I refer to my notes. But the biggest lessons that I can think of for other tribes that could be useful would be to begin those conversations and those planning efforts right now and continue to have those both on the community side, but also sharing your story across the globe and as well as with our federal partners is crucial. So with the community, it can be extremely challenging discussing plans that come with massive change, such as potential relocation. So beginning those conversations now and as time goes on, it's really necessary when working with community who are directly impacted by these things. Advocating for your tribe's climate resiliency efforts across the globe and on the federal side is also a crucial strategy, not only to learn about new resources, but also in obtaining them. Shedding light on these important issues that tribes face only continues to plant seeds or support those seeds that have already been planted in attacking these issues together as tribes. And then in regards to planning efforts, documenting the different issues that your individual tribe faces is going to be helpful as opportunities arise and become available, or maybe a new grant might come out because of those planted seeds in the past. So documenting those things about your tribe's issues will help when it comes to actually diving in and applying for those opportunities. And then also continuing that engagement with your community and tribal council on ideas you have to remedy these issues will help tribes be better prepared as those opportunities arise.
Great. So the next question is, Quinault Nation has always been at the forefront of self-governance. How does this effort align with core principles of self-governance?
So getting to this conference and kind of building up to the 50th anniversary of ISDEA really felt like a full circle moment for us to kind of get to this point and share our story and continue to share our story with all of our relatives that come every year and join us in this space. You know, a hallmark of this whole process has been the flexibility that is made available and returned back to tribes to design solutions that best work for them. You know, we have moved away now from this federal paternalism and this looking over your shoulder and cookie cutter approach to addressing issues. You know, whereas 570 plus nations now, we all have unique issues and unique concerns and shouldn't be treated as one size fits all. And so with our issues that we have faced at the nation, we've been able to really customize an approach that, you know, works with our community because we started with them first. You know, what is the vision of this community today, and what do you want that to look like for your children and your children's children? And so taking that, you know, to drive, you know, this work, you know, has really been a cornerstone of where the nation has seen self-governance moving. We are no longer want to be boxed into just the BIA and the Indian Health Service. It's really going to take a full system approach where there's a trust responsibility that's acknowledged and supported across the federal system. But even beyond that, you know, tribes are sovereign entities. We have the ability to access philanthropy, to work with other nation states, to work with other tribes even. And I really appreciated with what our president said too is, you know, self-governance for me, a fundamental teaching since I've been in the space is leaving a blueprint for others or sharing best practices with others. There's so many folks in our communities that have similar issues and similar impediments, and I think everything that Quinault has learned, we want to share that. We want to offer that as, you know, one maybe path forward that might work for you and your tribes and what you're facing. So self-governance, you know, to date is the most successful federal policy, but we want to get beyond that now and really have a future where what does that look like in a 2.0 version or beyond kind of like where we've been comfortable these last 50 years.
Thanks, Tyson. When you're talking about relocating in your communities, it's far more complicated than just mere logistics, right? There's a whole host of other complexities and problems and traumas associated with that as well. Is there in this film we saw, a good 10 minutes of an overview. Is there something that this film didn't cover that maybe is another aspect to this project that you'd like to talk about? Any of you?
I think something all of us in here can relate to is that we're a place-based people. We don't divide our forms from the land that we steward and protect and have been given to watch over from Creator. And so it hurts us to see, these larger things that are happening at a macro global scale that are fundamentally changing our way of life. I mean, our gentleman that was on our film talked about our salmon stocks and how those have drastically decreased. Those are our relatives. Those salmon are part of our creation story and feed our spirits and our culture. And to have those be threatened is really hard to accept. And so we do everything we can to, have intervention to interrupt that and create a better path forward. But I think what's hard to capture in a really short segment like that is just that element of living with it every day. We have children that have nightmares about a tsunami coming, or elders that are concerned about leaving a family home that's been with them for generations. And so there is a mental health component and a trauma component that we have to holistically address in addition to all the construction and the planning and all of that. It's so much more personal and deeper than just another development project that we're checking off a list.
So I actually want to pivot a little bit with this next question, and it was touched upon a little bit in the story. Can you briefly discuss the legacy of Joe De La Cruz and how it has shaped Quinault Nation in its self-governance journey?
Well, I think, I said it on the video. Joe's footprints that he left, really paved a path for all of us in Indian country, and how we deal with the state, how we deal with the feds, how we deal with our own selves as tribes. And if you miss a piece of that, then there's a gap there. And I think if tribal leaders really look at his vision and how he did things and try to follow suit to that, I think that's the way to go. And the other tribal leaders that were on here as well, the visionaries, they all did the similar approach to things, and I think that's our path to follow as tribal leaders now. And I think everybody here in this room realizes that and understands that. And one of the things that I always remember is that when you go somewhere, you be the one to tell your story. That's so important. That you know that story best. That's why that's a lesson that you have to live and tell. You have to tell your own story.
Just to add on that a little bit more too, I think seeing someone like Joe De La Cruz and also being raised by, strong women in my family, and I think Joe even might have mentored my aunt, who was the chief judge for over 30 years and got her into that role. But just having that representation come directly from our tribe, and also seeing that on this stage here, this has been one of my favorite conferences to attend, because you really get to see tribal people do that work that is everlasting for the path forward for all of us in the next 7 generations. And so hearing those strong voices makes me even more, vetted on the floor to tell my story, like Guy is saying, but also be strong and in believing in my seat at the table wherever I go, to help, get us moving.
I think his legacy has, every time I come here, it shows how his life has rippled out in so many ways. But what I've enjoyed is also seeing how that's rippled to Quinault from other tribes. I was so moved by the story of Taos Pueblo, and when they talked about, the restoration of Blue Lake, and how that key moment in time opened the door for people like Joe to go in and push decision makers to think about self-determination and moving forward with that as the cornerstone of federal policy. But it's because of all of Indian country kind of working in tandem and, being kind and taking your land back, whatever that is, it has rippled and, interconnected us all. And so every time I come here, that gets illuminated for me more clearly. And it's just, I don't know, it's beautiful to see, the tribes that first started in self-governance, their leaders still carrying on the legacy from their communities. And you just see it all over. Our folks from Lummi, Zakanafox, Hoopa, Cherokee Nation, we're all kind of building and walking with giants that came before us. And so just seeing that manifest in the people you meet here always inspires me and makes me realize how important this work is.
Thank you for that. Kind of pivoting back to, this undertaking, right? And I think there's probably some tribal nations here who are going through climate resilience problems and adapting to these changing times. This is a complicated thing. How important are the partnerships with the local, municipal, local, state, and federal agencies? And if you have any advice for others kind of tackling this issue, we'd love to hear it.
I believe it's making sure that the tribe is sitting at the table when it's something to do with water, when it's something to do with fish, when it's something to do with the forest, any sort of development in your territory. You have to make sure your tribe is at the table. If it's something to do with listing a species or anything like that, you have to make sure your voice is heard.
I think I heard a comment earlier in the conference too that states aren't necessarily obligated or have the trust responsibility to tribes, and I kind of don't agree with that and think that we're all part of the same family of governments and all have connection to each other whether you like it or not. And I know with us, where we've seen kind of supplemental support separate from the federal government has been in the state space, and I think self-governance has even talked a lot about philanthropic space, and that's kind of where we need to look to next. And I think that's totally on track with where I see us coming forward. But the way we've educated our state partners, because that relationship hasn't always been good, is getting them to understand that, we impact your citizens too. We're the highest employer a lot of times. When we're strong and healthy, you're strong and healthy. It doesn't have to be this us versus them type of mentality. And I think there are good models that really perpetuate a good state-tribal relationship that could be adopted elsewhere. But I also know that's not realistic in some areas too. But I think really educating folks and helping them understand that when tribal nations are strong and healthy, you benefit too in many ways that you don't even consider and probably take for granted.
I would just also ask since we saw this film, I'm sure much progress has been made. I'd love to hear how things are going and what's the next 5 years? What's going to happen next? Walk us through the plans for, if you can.
The plans for relocation. We're currently working on a new water tower for the village of Tahola. That should be completed the end of June 2025. We're excited about that. Like I said before, we're completing construction of our Quinault Generations building, which will house the early learning and the senior programs, which is super needed in the village of Quinault. We are working on the design for the master plan for Quinault relocation. We're also working on a relocation design for the museum to be relocated from the lower village to the upper village. So we actually have a lot of projects in place right now.
On the relocation side, that relates to the $25 million we received. We're currently building a policy for how to prioritize putting out the lease applications for the 59 lots that are already up there. So that will be divided between our housing authority and also the community-driven relocation program. So that our Quinault Housing Authority services mostly low-income families with a limited amount of like middle to high income ranges. So the CDR, Community-Driven Relocation Program, my program will be tackling all of the other incomes that reside in the lower village to prioritize them first for being able to move up the hill. But of course, that is all TBD. Where developing policy is not easy because you're always going to have someone that doesn't agree with something, and it's not easy. You know, these people might have their homes paid off and they don't want to move, and or they might want us to see how we can assess their home to maybe move their home to the new village, and then is that going to be something that our tribe as a whole will allow based on the condition of the home? So it's just a very challenging process.
Well, I just want to thank you all again for sharing your story.
Thank you.
You've come a long way, and I know you got a long way to go, but we're all here to support you, and we look forward to see what the finished project looks like. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great evening.